Good afternoon. I'm here with Faris Farassati, candidate for Overland Park City Council, Ward 5. On behalf of the Johnson County Public Policy Council, thank you for being here today.
Thank you very much.
The Johnson County Public Policy Council is made up of 10 chambers of commerce in Johnson County. Our goal is to provide information about public policy issues impacting area businesses. You ready to get started?
I am. Thank you.
Great. As a candidate, what are your top 3 policy issues?
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I appreciate it, Kevin. My top 3 policies are the ones that matter the most to the people of Overland Park. Number 1 is redirecting tax dollars to our city services where we need them. Is actually in the general format of fiscal responsibility. We are at the age of 60 years for Overland Park. A lot of our infrastructures are not as good as they were 30, 40 years ago. The time has arrived for us to be very, very critical of a number of tax giveaways that we have been giving away in the development course of this city. Protect those tax dollars in a way that we could use them for our citizens. So that's one of my top priorities, is to stop the tax giveaways to undeserving projects. The projects that deserve us, such as projects in the blighted areas, such as projects in the socioeconomically depressed areas, can still enjoy them. But majority of Overland Park does not need these tax giveaways and people don't want it anymore. I want to bring those dollars and put them into city services, police, roads, parks, and everything else that people of Overland Park demand at a high quality. Number 2 is enhancing public awareness and public involvement. During the last 2 years that I have had the pleasure of serving the good people of Overland Park, I have seen that they want to be involved, they want to be informed, and we need to be very welcoming and forthcoming in this attitude. I want them to be more connected to their city. I want their opinion heard at the level of city council, and within the brackets of reason, within the brackets of law and regulations, I want these demands and these needs of the people to be highest priority of the city. The number 3 is to basically have a government that is in close relationship with science and with what I call evidence-based. I want the decisions of the government to be clear, studied, researched, with good amount of data, free of pressure of lobbyists. One of the problems I think we have is that there is a lot of pressure from lobbyists on our decision making. I want to take that away and I want to insert a manner of evidence-based decision making. Where we make a decision, we have solid scientific proof for it. Government in the year 2019 is a science, and it has to be done in a scientific manner. I propose that to be the way of the future. I, as a cancer scientist, have been functioning like that for a long time. There is no reason that our government could not pursue an evidence-based manner.
Great, thank you. At 13.566 mils, Overland Park's tax rate is approximately half of our neighboring communities and remains the lowest of any first-class city in Kansas. Do you believe Overland Park citizens receive quality services and value for their tax dollar? And what improvements, if any, would you make to the existing city budget?
So obviously the quality of life in the city of Overland Park is high. And I respect my senior colleagues, the people who have been there before me, for putting their efforts into this. There is no question in that. Our mill levy being half of our neighbor city is a fact that we need to protect. But the costs are going up. Our city manager has continuously provided us with data and projections about these increasing costs coming our way, especially when you think about the quality of life that we are offering in Overland Park. At this point, we need to be very well aware of this structure of tax that supports this quality of life. Commercial tax, sales tax is dropping everywhere in the nation. Overland Park is no exception, simply because of online purchasing and other mechanisms available to the average household. We have the dark theory now basically threatening our tax collections because some commercial entities are in court demanding their tax money back not being able to collect from them, but we have to hand over taxes back to them. So what is going to be left is residential taxes. And we cannot be unfair to them. We cannot put all the burden on them. So I believe that there is a significant risk to the quality of life of people of the city of Overland Park if we continue to do exactly what we have been doing before. If we continue to give away these taxes, at some point we are not going to be able to provide the services that people demand. And I give you a data for it. If I'm such a data-oriented guy, I should be able to back my conversation with data. In the next 5 years, we need to spend down our cash reservoir, our saving account, to maintain the city services. That I do not call necessarily a good news. If you are supposed to go to your saving account for your daily expenditure to buy grocery, that's not financial stability. So I suggest that one of the mechanisms that we need to prevent any tax increase on property values, any need to collect more taxes from our residents, is to stop tax giveaways to private corporates who very handsomely benefit from construction in Overland Park already. That's one of the mechanisms. And then, of course, we need to spend in a very efficient way. We need to spend in a very judicial way. We need to know why we spend, and we need to also try to get best out of each and every dollar. Thank you.
What role, if any, do you believe the city should play in economic development to bring jobs and capital improvement to Overland Park?
I think city has a great role in this. Number one is that if we think the city of Overland Park or any city could create markets that don't exist, I believe that's not a notion that a lot of scientific research has proved. Government job is not to create a market, but it is to bring catalysts to the table that create that market with the cooperation of the private market and the rest of the economical factors in place. But what city can do is to keep the infrastructure, so to speak, to keep the environment welcoming for business, welcoming for high-paying jobs, and wanting and having a city that people want to live there. What do quality workforce looks into when they move to a city? Is the quality of residential neighborhoods, school districts, public amenities, and also basically safety. And these, even the school district in some respect is in correlation with the function of the city of Overland Park. The other ones are obviously our responsibilities, safety, public infrastructure. But even our school district, we need to implement policies that supports them in terms of their functionality. For example, school resource officers that we offer to the public schools, we could enhance that program. So these support mechanisms, they all have costs. And one more time, I go back to the same agenda. We need to have those tax dollars available to support this. Once we have this, the city is going to be the most welcoming place and the businesses would move in. We should not take the tax dollars to lure the businesses in. We should create such a good environment that they would come to us. And I believe Overland Park has been on that track. It's just that we need to be a little bit more critical and logical about it right now.
Okay. Along those lines, what is your philosophy regarding the appropriate mix of residential, commercial, and green space in development and redevelopment projects and the use of incentives for those types of projects?
One more time, I want to reiterate this point. For blighted areas, and the blight is a science by itself too. Blight studies need experts. A place could be infrastructurally blight or even culturally blight. So when we say blight, it's not, I just want you just to think that we are talking about a rundown, neighborhood or something like that. There are other factors which make an area blight. Blighted areas that are crime-infested, areas that are socioeconomically depressed, I have no problem luring businesses in, bringing developers in with certain level of tax dollars. That has to be reasonable as well. For the other areas, I think the big reputation of Overland Park in terms of a green city, in terms of a tree city, should be kept, and our environment needs it. I completed the questionnaire for Charlie Mission Post last night about our role in environment. We need to act locally in terms of our environment. Therefore, I very much want to put the pressure on rezoning matters as a way that has big impact on environment. When we rezone a parcel that was supposed to be 50, 60 single-family houses, and we allow that to be 700 apartment units, as an example, this mixture is suddenly shifted so drastically that our infrastructure is going to be stressed out, our public safety is going to be stressed out, and our environment is going to be stressed out. Maybe there would be some areas, some situations that going over master plan, rezoning it is justified, but that cannot be a trend. And I'm against that to be established as a trend, that every single zoning that we have in this city is a subject to negotiation. So I want the mixture to be kept in harmony with the master plan of the city, and also in harmony with what people want to see. If I have bought a single family residence next to a golf course, it is going to be extremely bad news when they tell me that in the next 15 years that golf course is going to be turned to a 5 million square foot concrete jungle. Okay? So let's come to the table, negotiate, let's look into the science, let's evaluate the impact on green space, on running water, and let's make these projects in a way that they make sense. It cannot be without considering what people want. It cannot be always from the perspective of, oh, we know better what's going to happen here. And the rights of the landowner and the businesses should be considered as well. I want a scientific, one more time, evidence-based approach without too much of mind formats, the formats which were applicable 10 years ago, to have the upper hand here. I want an all-inclusive study in a way that our quality of life is not threatened.
Great, thank you. What do you think the three greatest opportunities are for Overland Park's economy in the next 10 years, and how would you capitalize on them?
I believe that small businesses are very important. It's an opportunity for us. I have the idea of us being a catalyst to invite small businesses to the city of Overland Park. Hey, if you want to put a $100,000 sandwich shop together, why don't we act, and Chamber of Commerce could have a big role here, why don't we put you in touch with financiers, with real estate owners, that you could be in an environment talking to each other, and a space for your business is going to be available, a financier is going to be there, and you bring your hard work and your family and have this sandwich shop run and be prosperous in the city of Overland Park. I have an idea of even having a 2-day workshop. I have spoken to the chamber before about this. Hopefully we get to work on it. Having a 2-day workshop with these 3 elements meeting each other in our beautiful convention center. A small business owner, the idea guy, the financier, and the guy who could rent them a space. So that's one of the opportunities that I think we have. The other thing is that our science-based business could expand. We are lucky that we live in a city with major academic centers, KU, UMKC, Stowers, and now spin-offs from these major academic centers. Overland Park could be a destination for them. These are people who have patents. I happen to be one in the area of cancer treatment. I am establishing my own company. I actually am an example of this, and business for Overland Park could be a perfect opportunity for my company. Now, how we can do it, again, is a matter of a study. We need to look into the cities that they have provided this platform in a very efficient way, see if they negotiated startup packages with financiers. We could negotiate with them to provide that to the businesses in Overland Park. We have a few hundred acres of land in our arboretum that, thanks to the good efforts of Art and Creation Foundation of Overland Park, it's being developed to a beautiful visitor center very soon, but there is a few hundred acres of land available. Maybe in future that could be a science theme park that could house these innovative minds to come and play there, so to speak. And I think that's another area that the businesses could enhance and develop. And we have about 18% of Overland Park not built, okay? There is still room for development, but it needs to be done in a way that it doesn't choke the city. So the regular development, traditional development in terms of mixed-use apartments or single-family houses can continue, but we have to be aware of the fact that the commodity that we have is running low.
What specific elements of Forward OP's action agenda do you consider to be among the highest priorities for implementation?
I believe the highest Forward OP was a good study, but it's a study. It's one of the data points that we need to collect. I respect the good effort of the staff of the city, of the all 1,400 residents who were involved with the Forward OP study. But I just want to caution all of us that it's one study, and you cannot strategize for a city at the size of Overland Park for the next 5-10 years based on one study only. There should be many Forward OPs to show us the trend. That's what we do in science. We sample and sample again and sample again, and after a while we look at this trend to understand where we are going. Forward OP was a good start, but it's not the end point. It's not the Bible, so to speak, that we should absolutely follow those guidelines that came out of Forward OP. It's one of the things that we consider. Okay? Now, what came out of it that I highly want to agree? I, for example, agree with the agenda of city connected in terms of public transportation, biking. I think that's very good. That's obviously good for economy, good for environment, and good for everything else. I highly admire the Forward OP's conclusion that we need to have affordable housing. Yes, we have a problem. We need to study that. We need to understand what is affordability in Overland Park. And then we need to bring the right players to the table to help us to get there. A percentage of the housing here needs to be under umbrella of affordable housing. We need to get our minds away from the stigma of affordable housing to be rundown places or rundown apartments that nobody wants to live there. No, we can make it happen at a high quality, at the same time affordable to certain sector of the society that cannot afford beyond a certain number of dollars per month. So that's another area that I encourage. But then there are areas in Forward OP that we basically don't have jurisdiction. Mental health is out of jurisdiction of the city. If you consider mental health from the medical point of view, it's good for our health to see green space. But getting into mental health treatment prevention is out of our jurisdiction. But that's aspirational. Forward OP provides some aspirations, but some of these aspirations may or may not be within jurisdiction of the city, so to speak. That's why I'm saying we need Forward OP studies should trail us in terms of strategic planning for the city. We should not chase Forward OP. Many of them are needed.
Okay. As the second largest city in the metro, what is your philosophy on the role Overland Park should play in terms of metro area issues?
We are all in the same family. I have had conversations with city council people at the KCMO. Overland Park in no shape is disconnected from what happens in KCMO, from what happens in Lenexa, from what happens in Olathe. I think we have a chance to be a leader in this area, but we should be very well aware of the trends of problems which happens in the other cities, and we should adjust our policies with an eye towards those trends as well. I give you an example about public safety. There are these waves of, for example, problems with public in terms of gangster activities or things like that, which comes even regionally. So you would know that there is a wave of car theft starting in Oklahoma and in surrounding areas, and the law enforcement gets notices that it's coming our way. And then we need to raise our defenses all together in order to be able to stop that. That would be a metropolitan city-wide effort, and we need our police department, our safety machinery to talk to each other. In terms of, for example, amenities that we share, we should not try to compete. We should try to complement and be in cooperation with each other. When KCMO has put so much money in downtown development in terms of late night life and in terms of entertainment venues which you could go and have a good time until 2-3 in the morning, that is not going to be a focus for Overland Park that we should pursue. We have it in 20 minutes drive. If you want to have a fantastic nightlife, you could drive 15-20 minutes, get to downtown KCMO, get to Power and Light District. We shouldn't compete with that. Instead of that, we should try to enhance what I call our excellence areas. For example, our public parks, our green space, our beautiful arboretum, that now we can offer that as a commodity, educational, informational to the school system in KCMO. So know your strengths, know the strengths of your neighbor, do not compete on the areas that overlap, but be in complementation to each other, complete each other and not compete with each other. I think that's the attitude I want to see.
Good. Well, as we wrap up, tell me why you're seeking public office and what do you believe distinguishes you most from your opponents and making you best suited to serve?
Yeah. I respect everybody and anybody who wants to serve the public. I respect my senior colleagues, the staff at the City of Overland Park. I congratulate for candidates who are running against me because they have interests, they all have busy lives, and wanting to do public service is definitely an admirable act. I am a cancer scientist. I look at things from a perspective that science gives me. I think that's a unique characteristic, one of the unique characteristics that I have, that I look at things from the lens of evidence and science. Give me the right evidence, prove to me that this action is needed, and I support you. I cannot be pressured by lobbyists. One of the things that I am very immune to, and you learn that from your science training, is that from the statements that people give to you, from the things that they project to you as the facts, you learn how to distinguish between the real facts and marketing and lobbying agendas. And I can distinguish between these two very well. Sometimes it's not that pleasant. Sometimes it's really not that pleasant, okay? You maybe even, look like you are being negative on people. But one of the qualities that I offer is that I cannot be lobbied easily. And I think that's a gift. During my training at Harvard, at Mayo Clinic, I have learned how to drag the fact out of the, tons of marketing and lobbying and a lot of layers of gift wrapping and see if the fact exists there. If you are telling me that a barbecue restaurant is a national attraction, I drag the fact that it's not. So that's what I think. I offer. I also have the pleasure of working for people that I believe they are extremely hard workers, and I think I come from that sector of the society that came up via education, came up via hard work in middle class, and I think I represent them efficiently.
Good. Well, I want to thank you for joining us today, and we wish you the best of luck with the election.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Thank you, Chamber, for this wonderful effort, and I hope that we get to work with each other more.